I want to get this in. This is Michelle Cottle. She is a member of the editorial board of New York Times. She wrote a piece today called "Vengeance is Mine, Saith the President." Acquitted of impeachment charges, Trump goes after those who defied him. Here's what she wrote. John Bolton, Joe Manchin, Adam Schiff, Hunter Biden, Doug Jones, Gordon Sondland, Alexander Vindman, Yevgeny Vindman, Mitt Romney, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler, Debbie Dingell, New York air travelers, federal prosecutors, the F.B.I. It's been a mere week since Senate Republicans acquitted President Trump in his impeachment trial, assuring him once and for all that he need not fret about congressional accountability, but he has already made significant progress on his enemies list. Members of Congress, administration officials, law enforcement officials, residents of blue states, anyone who has ever displeased Mr. Trump is a potential target. The president is already neck deep into his reprisal tour. The president's targets can be sorted into multiple different categories, some better equipped than others to endure his wrath. Democratic senators such as Mr. Jones of Alabama, Mr. Manchin of West Virginia, both of whom have drawn Trumpian ire for their votes to convict him, they understand that politics is a blood sport. Ditto House members like Ms. Dingell, whom Trump randomly attacked again over the weekend, and Adam Schiff, who was the point person on impeachment. These professionals know how to brush off or brush back the taunts. After a particularly childish screed in which Mr. Trump called Mr. Manchin Joe Munchkin, the West Virginia lawmaker returned fire on Monday on CNN. Quote, I guess he's confused on that because I am a little bigger than him. He's got me by about 30 pounds on weight, but I am a little taller than him. End quote. And the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, can certainly hold her own against a presidential tantrum. Mr. Romney, the lone Republican to vote to convict Trump of abuse of power, is more exposed. It's not just the president mocking him and denigrating his religious faith. The White House has blasted out nasty talking points for surrogates to assemble. For example, Romney once again ditches principle to seek the far left's adulation. That said, Mr. Romney is a former presidential combatant. He knows how to take a punch. He also isn't up for re-election until 2024. Plenty of time for all this to pass. In the meantime, he'll enjoy some brand burnishing in non-Trump circles for having followed his conscience. Trump is also grumpy with Mr. Bolton, the former national security advisor, who, the Times reported, wrote in his forthcoming memoir that the president told him there was a link between Ukraine aid and the announcement of investigations of Joe Biden and his son. In addition to calling Mr. Bolton a liar, Trump has sought to block the release of his book. And there's talk of stripping Bolton of his security clearance. But Mr. Bolton, too, is nobody's victim. He's a seasoned Washington knife fighter who played his own coy game with impeachment investigators. It's also hard to feel sorry for Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the European Union, who Mr. Trump fired last week. Mr. Sondland essentially bought his diplomatic post with fat donations to Trump's inauguration. He changed his testimony mid-impeachment, rendering him a less than exemplary witness. He is above all a cautionary tale for those willing to sell their souls for power and prestige. Far more troubling is the assault on not-so-political public servants, such as Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a key impeachment witness. On Friday, Colonel Vindman was ousted from his post on the National Security Council. Creepier still, the president also fired Colonel Vindman's twin brother, Yevgeny, a lawyer at the National Security Council, who is not an impeachment witness. Such gratuitous score-settling carries a whiff of the Cosa Nostra, in which talking to the feds results in one's family being targeted, in part to send a message to other potential rats. Mr. Trump is making perfectly clear the high cost of questioning his questionable behavior or cooperating with Congress. Also this week, federal prosecutors are back in the president's crosshairs. On Monday, prosecutors recommended sentencing Roger Stone, Mr. Trump's longtime political fixer who was convicted in November on charges stemming from Mueller's investigation of Russian influence, to 7 to 9 years behind bars. This did not sit well with the president, who was up in the wee hours Tuesday morning tweeting his displeasure. Disgraceful, he erupted at 1 a.m. Not quite an hour later, he elaborated. This is a horrible and very unfair situation. The real crimes are on the other side, as nothing happens to them. Cannot allow this miscarriage of justice. By Tuesday afternoon, the Justice Department had dutifully announced it would revisit the grossly disproportionate sentencing recommendation. All 4 prosecutors handling the case promptly withdrew. Far from questioning Operation Vengeance, the White House has been justifying it. In the run-up to the president's acquittal address last Thursday, the White House press secretary Stephanie Grisham assured Fox News viewers that he would be talking about, quote, just how horribly he was treated, and you know that maybe some people should pay for that, end quote. Mr. Trump is now hard at work making that happen. And who's to stop him? It's that last sentence in Michelle Cottle's op-ed piece that should be the clearest warning you can get. And that is, and who's to stop him? The fucking pigs, the Christian Senate, white, male, mostly Christian fascist pigs in the Senate? No. The rotten to the core, white Christian male and female representatives in the House? No. His putrid fucking cabinet of miscreants, liars, cheats, sneaks, incompetents? No. The Supreme Court, if it ever got that far, loaded now with right-wing fucking sycophants who will do anything Trump says and declare it legal? No. So who's left? Who's left? As Michelle Cottle said, and who's to stop him? You? Me? He has a fully compliant propaganda arm that is as effective as the Soviet news agency TASS was at one time. And that is the Fox sewer run by this fascist prick, Rupert Murdoch. Who's to stop him? I think you know the answer. We can stop him. But it's going to take a huge number of us. So what are we going to do about it? What am I waiting for? Since I have such a tiny microphone and zero influence, I'm waiting for someone with a big microphone and a lot of influence. Man or woman, I can think of 2 or 3 people right now who could pull it off, to set a date, a certain date, when the American people will say, that's enough.
Hi, Truth Seekers. It's Kathy Malloy. Only you can help save the life of a progressive podcast. Visit MikeMalloy.com and help us keep it lit through the impeachment, the 2020 election, and beyond.